welcome to my dining room. Yes, this is just another one of my gardens. And today, seeing as I really have this need to get my hands in the dirt, or my gloves in the dirt, bought these just recently, because I can't wait. We are going to work on my house plants. So these plants normally they always go out into my courtyard during the summer. In the winter, I bring them back into my dining room. You can see that this one is growing quite well, taller than my lamp, sorry. But we're going to take a look at the pots, and there are certain techniques. In this case, we're going to top dress. We also, this afternoon, are going to do some transplanting, or repotting as it's called, and I have a couple different plants that we want to talk about in that segment. But for now, let's get to this beautiful ficus plant here. So here we are, my ficus tree. You can see it did a great job of putting on some growth through the year. I'm going to remove my little gnomes, my fantastic fairies. I'm going to just kind of scrape in here a little bit and see how much root system there is. This plant will need to be transplanted probably in the spring, but for right now, all I'm going to do with this plant is top dress it with a planting mix. I've got my nifty scoop here. I'm just going to keep adding some soil just to cover those roots up again that have made it to the surface. And like I said, in the spring, I think it's going to need a larger pot. And also notice that a plant this size, I do this to many of my plants, they are on a dolly, so they roll very nicely. I can move them. I can get behind them to wash the windows or sweep around, or if I need to work on the plant, I can get it out away from the wall. So this plant has got some nice soil on it. I'm going to grab my watering can, and when I water this time of the year, I like to use root stimulating fertilizer at a half rate. I don't use a full strength fertilizer. I just want to water it in, give it enough water so it soaks down into the pot, into the root system. This will settle, and as it settles, I'm going to add this mulch on top of here, just a green, dried Spanish mulch. The reason is purely ornamental. I don't really need to have a mulch in here, but it just kind of gives it that nice, fresh spring look. Stuff is really readily available at your local florist or garden centers. There's several different kinds that we'll be using today. This one is the dyed. Pull some more out of there and stick it in the back. And then my little gnomes once again go home. It's really tough roots in there. Definitely need a bigger pot. So speaking of bigger pots, when you're transplanting, this is a 18-inch pot. So when I go to get a new container for this plant, I will go with a 20-inch. You want to have at least an additional inch on the diameter of the pot when you're transplanting. So here we go. That was really simple. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit, take the yellow leaves off, and a lot of times you can just shake it and the bad leaves will fall off. And then use my squirt bottle and give it a little shower, a little misting, because it is a tropical plant and it enjoys having that extra humidity. So here we are with the ficus. That was quick and easy. Now let's move on to a transplanted variety that we're going to do. All right, here's a sadly neglected plant. I'm kind of embarrassed to show you because the roots are very exposed. The ball is not how it should be. So this plant definitely needs some work. I'm going to remove this stick out of here and the twine that's around it, because it's obviously doing nothing. This is a monkey paw plant. It was a gift from a previous a friend or an acquaintance or whatever you want to call it, and I've had it for quite a while, and it's grown quite a bit, but it's been in this sad little pot for way too long. And this is the beautiful container that I found and purchased to put it in. So when you're buying a pot, keep in mind that this is an investment. It's like a piece of furniture. It's going to be with you for many years. Going cheap on a pot isn't always the best idea. I've had this pot probably for 20 years. It's a self-watering pot, and I'm going to reuse it, repurpose it for another plant after I get this one out of here. First thing I'm going to do, of course, is remove my garden art. I have some pretty stones in here that I'm going to get rid of. Something I stole from the South Dakota. Some more pretty plants. Now I'm going to take a look at the pot here. It has a very large drain hole. So this is just a piece of old t-shirt. I have it doubled over. I'm going to put it over the top of this hole, because this hole, everything will fall through. Because the pot is so large, I want to add some drainage, and this is gravel meant for aquariums. You say, Diane, why did you buy aquarium gravel? And I'll tell you, it's sterilized. It's clean. I didn't have to wash it. It's already been washed for me. And it's just going to add some, you can use pea gravel or whatever kind of gravel you like. Just put that in the bottom of the pot. Not for your fish, but for drainage. Smooth it out real nice, and it's nice and flat in there. So great, we got a nice bed of rocks in here. It's going to help with the drainage in this pot. Now I'm going to take this out of the pot. Good thing I have a tarp down, because I'm going to make a wee bit of a mess. I'm going to set the plant sideways so I can take a look at the root system. I want to move things around a little bit. You notice that some of these roots, this pot was at one point in or plant, I should say, was at one point in a pot that was far too small. You notice that the roots are kind of wrapping around itself. We don't want that to continue happening. So I have one here that is doing a flashback, and if I can find where I put my shears, here it is. I'm going to remove this right up here and get rid of that. See how it looks in there. I've kind of just moved it around a little bit. Before I started to transplant this, before I started to transplant this, I did check for pests to make sure that I didn't have any type of scale or aphids or whiteflies or anything like that on my plants. That's also one of the times when I'm doing my misting with my water bottle that I make sure I do a nice close look at everything to make sure that there isn't any bugs on there, because they do like to hide, especially scale. So we want to take a really good look at that. Now this pot is obviously quite big for this plant. I'm going to have to add a little more soil. So I'm just going to lean this baby over. And how do you love these gloves? Aren't these cool? These are really a nice rose glove. And the reason I'm using it is because this plant has thorns on it. And actually there's a barb on the end of each one of the leaves. So I don't want it to get it against my face either, because it'll scratch. Somebody in the family once called this the Charlie Brown Christmas tree from heck. So I'm just going to take a bag of soil. Sometimes if it's a bigger plant, I guess it's nice to have two people. But in this case, I think I got it. The soil that I'm using today is a formulation meant for tropical plants and garden plants. It does have a fertilizer in it I don't particularly care myself to use potting soil fertilizer in it. I like to apply the fertilizer that I want to put in there. And I strongly recommend that you use caution when purchasing a soil with like the soil moist polymers in them, because they do hold water, and if you're overwatering it, you can cause the problems can occur with rot. And if you notice that you've got little flies and stuff coming out of your soil, that means your soil is too wet in many cases, and you need to lighten up on the watering a little bit. So in that case, invest in a moisture meter. There's nothing wrong with using a moisture meter. I use one on a regular basis just to go around and check to make sure that plants at certain times of the year are getting enough moisture. In the winter, things dry out a lot faster. We do have a humidifier in here, which is very beneficial not only for us, but for the plants as well. They're tropical plants, and like I mentioned earlier, they do live in an area where there's a higher humidity content, and that's what they like. So that's probably why they do so well outside in Minnesota during the summer. So they love that humidity. It makes them grow. Like I mentioned, this pot is a little big for the plant. When you're going to the garden center to get a new container for your plants, try to go an inch above what the original planter is. Like we saw on this plant's root system, it was quite girdled from being in the wrong size container for too long. So that's bad on me. I should have caught that. So I'm going to continue filling this to the right level, and then we'll apply our new mulch. I'm going to fill this up a little bit more, and while I'm doing that, let me mention that if you do notice that you have some pests on your plants, use the least harmful pesticide first and work your way up. All pesticides have some toxicity to them, even if it's insecticidal soap, which is a nice one for aphids and whiteflies and like insects like that. Do some research. Some insects are resistant to certain pesticides, so insecticidal soap won't work on, let's say, scale. You need a different type of pesticide for that type of insect. So do a little bit of research. Check with your local garden center if you're not certain. They normally have somebody on staff that's experienced and knowledgeable on using different types of pesticides. So check with them. There's no harm in that. Or contact your county extension service. They're always willing to help as well. So there's all kinds of venues out there for you to ask advice from, including me. And this soil that was in this pot is spent. It's been in there long enough that all the nutrients have been drained out of it already. So this is just going to go in my compost pile along with all the foliage and little bits of debris that I pick up from my plants out in the compost. So here we are. We got this all done. And you see there is a lot of soil area in here. And I don't know about you, but I have a little kitten that seems to like loose dirt. So, and a dog that eats dirt. So I'm going to add a mulch on the top of here to detour them from going in my plant. And in this one, I'm going to use a natural sphagnum moss. I'm reusing this from a plant that my husband had a orchid that he transplanted, and this was on the top of it. So I want to reuse it. Perfectly good moss. It's not doing much other than covering up the soil, and as I water it, it will settle down. And I do have some more moss I can fill in here a little bit. I did also bring this soil. When I was talking about soils earlier, I want to make the point that there's different soils for different kind of plants. This is the package that my husband used for his orchids. It is the bark. So bark with very little soil in it, and it is used for bromeliads and orchids and some ferns. And that's, I'm going to water it in a little bit more. And then I will top dress this, just fill it in a little bit more with the moss so that it's filled in properly. Let's put our garden art back in there. My stone from South Dakota. A couple other pebbles that I had in there. And it's good to go. I'll clean it up, do a little bit of trimming, and then put it back in the corner where it belongs. Now, this is going to be the really fun one. I found this pot. It is gorgeous, and I think it's going to be fun and exciting, and I can't wait to show you. So let me get this cleaned up, and then we're going to do a spider plant in a new container that I just found. That's awesome. Isn't it awesome? Don't you just love this? I saw this in the garden center, and I just screamed out at me saying, "Take me home!" So I did. I got this really cool container. It does have a nice drainage hole at the bottom. Whoop, almost got my finger stuck. So then again, piece of t-shirt, cloth, the water will soak right through it, but it'll keep stuff in the pot rather than in the drainage tray. So I put that in the bottom. I've got my gravel, just like the last plant we did the transplant for. I'm gonna put this in here. And also, the gravel in this pot is also gonna act as a weight. And because it's kind of an unstable, I'm concerned, especially with my cats and stuff, and it's going to be on a pedestal. So I just want to have a little more weight in there to keep it from tipping over. The soil I'm using is very lightweight. It's like I said, it's meant for a tropical plant. Okay, so now I have about an inch layer of aquatic charcoal in here, and that just helps to filter the water a little bit, and then you don't get as much problems with mold and such, because it is such a deep pot. I know I didn't do that with the other plant, but that's because I had more gravel in there and more soil surface. So here's the plant that I'm going to repot. It's a spider plant. Again, this one is way overdue. You'll see that the roots are coming out of the bottom of the pot. So definitely time to replant it. And look at that. Holy moly, huh? That is a root-bound plant. I'm going to do my best without killing it to kind of break it apart a little bit so that the roots, again, are not going in a circle. You don't want that. And I'm going to set it in there to see how much soil we're going to need. Oh, this is going to be nice and full. Spider plants don't produce baby spiders unless they're root bound. Just an FYI. So isn't it going to be cool? Look at this. This is going to be awesome. Put that one in here. Break that off there. I have one more here. I'm going to break the soil off. Look at the tubers. Looks really healthy. Nice. I'm going to put him on this one on the side. Ah, look at that. That is awesome. That makes Diane a happy camper. Now I'm going to start filling around. Get in there with my fingers and wiggle it down. Make sure all the roots are in there, not sticking out. If there's too much roots, trim them off a little bit. It's all right. They'll grow back. Making a little bit of a mess here. That's okay. That's why I have the plastic down on my hardwood floors. This is a root. Didn't want that there. Whoa. Tap it in real well. Thank you, Colin. Not only is he a great cameraman, he also picks up after me. And keeps track of my coffee cup. It's a dirty job, but somebody's got to do it. So I got it pushed in here, firmed in with my fingers, just wiggled it in there, got the soil down. Look at that. Isn't he cool? I got to name him. Maybe we should have a contest. Name the pot. What would you call him? This one won't be getting any mulch on the top of it. It's just way too much in the crown here. And I also want to put in this little baby here. Like I had mentioned earlier, I do have a cat, and they broke off this little baby spider, and I stuck it in water. And now I have another little spider plant started. So this one I'm going to put over his forehead. There we go. Nice. If a spider breaks off also while you're transplanting, just stick the root side down into the dirt. Is he dirty? He's got a dirty nose now. I'm going to give him a drink of water. Voila! He's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about this. He's going to sit on this pedestal that my father made for me many, many, many years ago. Voila. I love it. I just love it. Do something wild, do something crazy, do something fun. Enjoy yourself. Keep in mind that this pot is an investment. I'm going to have this container for many years. So the few dollars extra that I spent on it, I feel is way worth it. It's, to me, another piece of furniture. So I thank you very much for joining us in this video. Stay tuned. Next video we'll be talking about tool care, and we'll be out in the workshop sharpening shovels and some pruning shears and what have you. So please stay tuned. Thanks again for watching the video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification button. And if you like this video, please share it with your friends. I'm Diane Cutler from Diane's Gardens. I'll see you in the garden. Goodbye. What do you think? Pretty cool, huh?